The first session brings me to a spot in Langstone Harbour. Some of you may recognise this area as one I've filmed at before, a film about the mythical flounder and how it seems next to impossible to catch one of them these days. Well, this film is about bass, and specifically lure fishing for them. Funnily enough, these have also proved elusive for me. Maybe I'm losing my edge, but catching a bass on a lure is starting to become my nemesis. I did capture one not too far from here around 2 years ago, a very small one, but a fish that brought me immense joy. Typically I didn't have any cameras with me that day. Here I plan to emulate that success, although this time the camera has come along for the ride. It was late afternoon, after I'd finished work, when I decided to hit the lures. The harbour was always going to be the area to target. Since that last capture 2 years ago, I'd dabbled far and wide with no success, so I was always going to be drawn back to this area. I felt though that I'd upped my game since. I'd settled on a rod of a little over 8 feet with a wonderful action. A small Ninja reel was recently discovered and was loaded with good quality braid. A fluorocarbon leader was attached, and the selection of lures I carry now has also evolved. It had been a hot day, but now, after tea, it was beginning to feel cooler. Dusk wasn't too far away, and I felt with the gently flooding tide that conditions were spot on. Confidence was high, well, as high as it could be for a failed lure angler. I began trying the soft plastics in my box. These are something I really need to gain confidence in, so I tried 3 or 4 variants for the first dozen or so casts. Nothing touched the lures. There were no follows or rises, although scanning the surface of the water it was apparent that not much moved at all. Perhaps I was in the wrong spot, but it was too late in the day to start exploring new areas. Eventually I switched to the tried and trusted surface lures, the Fisher's Esper-T variant. Widely thought of as one of the best surface lures in the game. I had this lure in a couple of sizes and a couple of colours to give me options, but whatever I tried, nothing was forthcoming. With the light fading fast, I decided a snack on the way home was the way forward. But I did have the following evening free, so I was already making plans for a return journey. The next day I left the house a little earlier. The spot I wanted to explore would entail a long walk, but a pleasant one. A new location I'd not explored before, so the excitement was massive. Soon after leaving the car and walking a few yards, I realised there was a closer car park, so I moved the car before heading off on my travels. The walk was just beautiful, a glorious coastal stroll, done very slowly, but there was no rush. It wasn't even low tide. Along the way I regularly stopped to gaze at wonderful birds. My favourite birds: lapwing, avocet, shelduck, curlew, sandpiper. The list goes on. It would have made a magical evening stroll, but this wasn't just a stroll. Hopefully I'd get to fish once I'd reached my destination. It's always a good time to get down at low tide. The things you can see, the things that are uncovered, the channels, the gullies, it's all there. I really didn't know where I was heading. Apart from a top-down view on Google Maps, I knew nothing of the location. but when I got there, I knew straight away. A walk out to a raised hump across oyster beds, no wonder oyster catchers were in abundance, and then down the other side to the channel, a fairly wide channel trickling gently over weed patches from left to right, signalling that the tide was still ebbing. There were fish present, scatterings of fry and what was obviously larger fish chasing them. This was it. This was what I was looking for. Utopia was found. Soon after getting there, the tide started to rise. I began flicking the surface lures out from the off. This was no time to be experimenting. I needed to hit them with the good stuff from the off. As the weed touched the surface in a few areas, the lure hit them and dragged a little. One such time when I thought I'd hit a patch of weed, it started to pull back. It was small, but I'd hooked a bass. After all this time of trying, I felt elated, but I had to land it first, so the joy was dampened for the time being. I can't begin to tell you how pleased I was to see that little fish. It meant so much. That perseverance had paid off. It was a start. It brought confidence in floods. It was just magic. It was a relief. Never as such a small fish meant so much. Hopefully it was to be the start of something. Not that I ever put all my eggs in one basket. This week it could be bass fishing. Next week carp. The week after perhaps out in the boat, and so on and so forth. We like to mix things up. And although I felt victory at that moment in time, I had no time to rest on my laurels. I fished on after releasing that fish with a huge grin, and only a couple of casts later hooked another fish, a fish of similar size, but I was equally overjoyed. A small window of opportunity maybe, but with the ever-increasing tide, and more signs of fish topping, jumping and chasing, including some proper old donkeys, the lures were quiet. I switched up the lure patterns, the retrieve rates, the casting angles, and although I felt I fished well, things remained unfruitful. Another fish would have been nice, perhaps a larger one, but I really couldn't have been happier with the result I'd already had. It was just what the doctor had ordered. With the fish catching bit wrapped up, I was at liberty to relax, enjoy my surroundings, the impending dusk, immersed totally in my favourite time of day. I strolled back towards the car with the light fading fast. There was one more spot I wanted to try. a channel halfway back with an outfall churning the water. There were fish here, very small ones, and I did manage to foul hook a very small mullet. But it seemed as though there wasn't anything there of any size, and gradually it was getting very, very hard to see anything. Soon enough I was back at the car and on my way home, happy, and thinking of the next opportunity I'd get to return to my newfound paradise.